Everyone? Welcome to Pink Flags.
Welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday. We are back.
Yes, yes,
Mrs. Williams is on sabbatical and should be back with us shortly. But
yes, yes.
it's just the two of us tonight.
We got this.
Okay.
And today we're talking about communication
Yes.
and the importance of communication in relationships.
Communication is an art. It is an art. And part of the thing about communication is that if you don't know where your partner is at, you start to assume. And what happens when you assume? You make an ass of you and me.
Hmm.
So, how about we talk about what it would be like to be fully open and tell your partner like what's ever going on without hurting their feelings?
Well, when you're saying tell your partner what's fully going on without hurting their feelings, that entails a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like like it's a point where you gotta understand, like, you have to know how to speak to people, and after you get that together, then you can make it work. But honesty is definitely good. Honesty is definitely good, and being straightforward is very good.
Being kind is really good
Yes,
because
yes,
a lot of times you have to say things that aren't going to sit right, at least at first, and
yeah,
not snapping back on someone.
right. It's not a war. It's a conversation, and sometimes we get so caught up into we get so caught up in what we're trying to do and what we're saying, that like, instead of getting your point across, you're arguing, and that's definitely not good.
I mean, I've maintained, I've never hid the fact that I'm definitely a big crybaby.
Do
But
you hear me clearly up there?
yeah,
Am I loud enough?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm much louder than you.
Oh no, nah, not to me. I just wanted to be sure.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. No, no, no issues with sound quality.
All right, very good.
Like part of the thing I talk about all the time is that in relationships, I can be a crybaby, but I have found that part of the reason that I find myself crying is because a lot of the times what I have to say is not received. And these are things that you need to establish and figure out while they're still pink flags before they get red flags.
Yes.
Because there's a whole, I mean, like the first time you have a conversation with someone and tell them something that they don't want to hear, be very mindful about how they take it.
Yeah, that's true. Because you have to watch how you come across with people.
Right.
Like,
And ask, like, did I come across wrong? Did I say something offensive?
And in relationships, sometimes we all get very guarded. And like I said, instead of having a conversation, it becomes more of a battle. And it shouldn't be a battle. We're trying to
No,
solve a situation, but people get caught up so much until I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, that you're not taking care of what needs to be taken care of. So you have to remember you could get your point across, but you don't have to be it's not a war. You don't have to be argumentative the whole time.
no. It's not every time you tell somebody that you're not feeling right about what they have to say should be construed as an attack. And I used to very, very much be like that. And I worked a lot of it out in therapy. And not everybody does that. And then you find yourself like backsliding into old bad habits because you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't really listen or only listens to respond.
Right.
And that's kind of like, well, now what do we do? Are you listening to respond and then only telling me what I want to hear? Or are you listening with the intention of working through this issue? Because,
And
okay, you wake up, what happens to all of us full grown adults? You tell somebody about your feelings, it becomes like a verbal tussle or whatever. You either go to sleep mad or you make up and have makeup sex and you wake up in the morning and it's gone.
hmm
But was it solved?
right, that's the issue. That is definitely the issue. You want to solve the situation. You don't want to mask the situation. You want to make sure that the situation is taken care of. You don't want to wake up the next morning with the same stuff going on. So, you definitely have to take your time, sit and converse, and you gotta do what needs to be done to make sure this whole thing is satisfied. So people have to understand that, and that's what it is. You have to take the time to sit and speak and put in the work with the person and say, listen, this is what I need, and this is what I want to do.
Yeah. And you have to find out, like, when you're in a new relationship, are you safe to express yourself? Is it, if you say something that someone else finds offensive, are they going to turn around and hurt you more?
And that's the thing also. It's like I said, people get so caught up in the proving their self right that they're not accomplishing what they set out to accomplish. Like it's more about I'm right and you're wrong than let's get this situation solved. And once you get past that, you could do a lot. That's very important. Like you have to be straightforward. You have to let a person understand like this is where I'm coming from. give the person time to speak and let you know where they're coming from. And you have to open up. And like I've said, for some people, it's hard to open. I'm not an open book to a lot of people. I know that. So when I open up to a person and I feel they're not listening to me, it bothers me. Or when I open up to a person and I feel they're trying to deflect from what I'm saying, then I feel some way. Because as a person that doesn't open up to a lot of people and I choose to let you into my circle, I want to reciprocate. We have to get that understanding. And if I feel a person is just like brushing off my feelings, then I revert back to my old ways and not want to speak, not want to follow through. So even like I said, sometimes you have to work through things, but you must communicate and you must take the time to see where the other person's coming from so things could go better. And
A
that's
lot
very
of times
important.
too, what?
I said that's very important.
A lot of times too, when you're listening, like I said, a lot of people listen to respond, especially when the conversation gets heated.
Right.
You know, I want to speak my piece. So really, I just want you to stop talking so I can like talk more about my feelings.
Hmm. And that's not good.
No, but I think we've all done it.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. You
And
you
the
have to
person,
take
like,
you have to take the time
what?
you have to take the time to let a person express how they feel, say how they see things, and take it from there. And you can't just say, well, this is the way it has to be, this is what it is. In any relationship, it's the both of us. It's not just how I feel, it's not just how you feel. It's what's best for the both of us. That's very important again.
But how do we get there? How does a couple get to where they're comfortable enough with each other?
Now the thing with that is
Hmm.
getting there is you have to take those steps. Even if it's uncomfortable for you, you have to take those steps. You have to trust each other. You have to be open. You have to listen to one another. And when I say listen, I mean really sit, be honest, listen, take your time, not an argument, just really listen again and figure it out. Yes.
What do you do? What steps do you take to get to that point? That's another important question.
Well, I believe when you're conversing, you have to have that real conversation. You have to try because it's not going to work for everyone, but you have to try not to be judgmental. And I believe people always say that, but I know I'm judgmental. In a heartbeat, I'm very judgmental. But I try to listen and I try to look at it from a other person's perspective. And that's a start. That's the start. And you have to be willing to sit and compromise and listen and to see from a different perspective. That's very important also. And you can't just brush off the next person's feelings.
No, you can't. And another important thing that you need to do when you're in a new relationship is let go of the baggage that was attached to the relationship before. You can't make assumptions that someone's actions come with the same motive as somebody you were with before.
Yes, that's true. That's very funny. I had this conversation with someone else, and I always tell them every man isn't the same, every woman isn't the same. You could have went through a hell of a lot with one person. That doesn't mean the next person that comes up is going to be the same as the last one. And everybody has their own different motives. Everyone sees everyone sees love, commitment differently. I may see love and commitment one way. You may see love and commitment in a completely different way from me. So you have to find what that person considers as loving, as being committed, and you work with it from there. Because even the way we were raised and the way we were nurtured, we could express love in a different way from another person.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I was raised by two people who were like each other's ride or die. And their communication was flawed in some areas, but it didn't stop.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, like, I would say, like, in the last 20 years, almost everybody I've ever been in a relationship with has come from parents who got divorced. And it's not like I have a leg up because I was married to someone whose parents were married till they died, and my parents were married till my mom died. And that did not give us any kind of like leg up when it came to being able to communicate or understand what it takes to make a marriage work. But I do know that people that did not witness a couple like really committed to making marriage like the cornerstone of their entire life are at a disadvantage for knowing how that's done.
But it's so much. It's work that you have to put in for this relationship. And
Yeah.
if the person isn't willing to put in the work, then you have to understand like maybe this isn't the person for you. Like I always tell people like when we talk about forgiveness and stuff like that, I always say I'm not the most forgiving person at all. And
But you know that.
right, I know that. I
Yeah.
understand that. And but I say to me it's with a purpose because I feel people do things and they know what they're doing. If you make an honest mistake, that's one thing. If you do something and you know what you're doing, you did it with intent. So if you did something to hurt or disrespect me intentionally, why am I being forgiving? But like different people look at that in different ways. I tell people that's just how I feel. Somebody else may feel 100% different. And they may look at it like, well, it's okay. I could deal with it. I could work around it. I know me. I was having one of those conversations today, and I said to the person, I know if I felt someone cheated on me, I could never forgive them because I would always have it in the back of my mind. Every time I looked at them, all I would be thinking about is what they did. So I couldn't get past it. So I wouldn't even waste their time. I would just be like, we have to move on. I already know that. Like, there's no coming back from that. So in that situation, it's just like, I'll leave it alone. I wish you the best. Go handle what you have to handle. That's it. But that's why when you first start dealing with someone, I think you have to sit down and have these real conversations. And you have to find out. I'm not saying you have to speak about marriage on the first date, but when you're talking to someone, you have to have the conversation and really find out what they're looking for. Let them know what you want because time is a precious commodity. And I don't want to waste my time with no one. And if we're not on the same page, why am I here? Why are you there? So you have to set your boundaries, let people know what you're good with, what you're not good with, what you could deal with, what you won't allow, and you take it from there.
Yeah. And the other important component of listening is don't, when you're listening to someone during an argument, do not pocket nuggets to use later. How many couples pocket nuggets to use later? I'm
Yeah,
going to take all these little pebbles and put them in my pocket. And when you act up the next time, I'm going to just start throwing them at you.
right. That's not good.
No, but how many people do you and I know that do that? A lot of people. And that's been the downfall of a lot of people's relationships that could otherwise be like healthy and happy. When you're done, when it's over and you make up, let it go. One of the things
Right,
they used to always tell me is there's no point in forgiveness if you can't forget. And that's like what you said about cheating.
right,
I can't forgive you because I'm not going to forget about it.
right. And it's some people that can let it go. But if you know yourself, you got to be honest with yourself. I know if a woman cheated on me, it's no way in hell I'll ever forget it. And I can't look you in the face and be like, I forgive you. And in the back of my mind, every time I'm looking at you, I'm thinking negatively. So that will not work.
Yeah, like I'm looking at you knowing full and well that I don't.
Right. I don't trust you. And trust is very important in a relationship. And if I feel you don't have integrity, if I don't like your character, I can't deal with it. Like it just won't work. So if you're in a situation where we're having a conversation and everything coming out your mouth, I believe is a lie, it's not working. And when we communicate, if I got a tippy toe around everything, or you have to tippy toe around everything, that's not good. I tell people all the time, you got to communicate. It's good to be straight up, but you also have to watch how you speak to people because words hold energy. People don't get that. Like certain shit you say could never be taken back. Once it's out of your mouth, it's out, and it cannot be taken back. So you have to understand, like, you got to watch what you say to people. You have to watch how you say it to people, and that's the realest thing. Like, it's no joke, and people don't get that. But
And when you're communicating, you've got to remember what you said.
right,
That's another thing. Don't just say what needs to be said in the moment and then the next day, fuck it. Well, the other person's like hanging on those words. And you get up the next day and you're like, I just said that so like there'd be peace in my house so I could get a good night's sleep. Or I just said that so, to make them shut up. Or I just said that because somebody had to say it.
right.
No, don't do that. That's like even worse.
That's not beneficial to either one of you.
No. It's like when you listen with intention. I want to hear what you have to say
Right,
to prove our connection as a couple. And not just two people that are a couple, your coworkers, your supervisor, your kids, your friends. Like if one of your friends tells you like that they get all stressed out every time their partner does X or Y and Z, and the next time you hang out with them, you start doing X or Y and Z. You're a bad friend.
true.
Yeah, like, oh, I don't like when I go out with if one of my girls said, I don't like when I go out with, my boyfriend because he tends to like have too much to drink and then makes me drive. And then you guys go a couple of weeks later, you go out dancing, and then you hand homegirl who doesn't drink your car keys, like, drive me to your house and I'll get myself home.
Hmm.
That makes you a shitty friend.
Right. That's not cool at all.
No. I mean, that's an extreme example, and I'm sure there's much quieter examples like, when you go out with somebody who's vegan and you order food that like makes them upset. It
Yeah,
may
that's
seem petty, but it matters to them. They made the choice either for health reasons or moral reasons. And right now, you ain't respecting either.
and you have to really try to understand where a person is coming from, and when you have the conversation, like you said, be open and honest, but respectful with that also. It shouldn't be a screaming match. You could be upfront without being disrespectful, but it has to be honesty, and it has to be straightforward, and you have to let a person really understand where you're coming from.
And you
And
put boundaries without being mean.
right, right. And you have to listen. And a person has to take into account how you feel. how you see things. Like if I'm telling you something that I feel is important and you just basically brush off what I'm saying, now I'm looking at you different, like, wow, okay, you don't value how I feel. So, like, now, if you don't value how I feel, why am I going to value how you feel? And that becomes the next problem because it's now like almost a tit for tat. Like, oh, you don't care about my feelings, but you want me to respect your feeling, and that's where all the negativity comes out also.
Yeah, because it's disrespectful. And it's like love equals respect equals love equals respect equals love equals respect, and around and around and around. And
Right.
when you when you listen with intention and you don't make like angry, snarky answers or cut people off just to get your point across,
Hmm.
you're showing them respect. When you're
Right.
listening with like um when you listen and you're noting the value associated with what's being said. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's important. That's an act of love. Even when you're not doing it to someone that you have a romantic relationship with, it's caring about how they feel.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be understood. Everyone wants to be valued. And like I said, if a person is telling you, listen, I feel some way about what you're doing and how you represent yourself, and we're dating, so I feel I'm a little uncomfortable with this. And if you like, well, this is who I am. Yeah, that's who you are, but you're in a relationship now. And this comes time where we have to work things out where we're both in a good place. And if you can't do that, your situation cannot grow. And especially if a person is coming across coherently and exact, and they're telling you, "I'm uncomfortable. I need you to stop A, B, and C," and you brush it off, that's a problem.
I remember being at a crossroads in a relationship, and it was the first time some really difficult shit went down. And I was like, the next time you need something, just ask me straight out. Tell me what you need. I would do almost anything to make you happy.
Hmm.
And the person told me, I don't know how to do that.
Wow.
You need to work on it.
But sometimes people let their pride and their ego get in the way of everything, and they don't understand that that's blocking your whole situation. Sometimes pride could be the worst thing to have.
So pride goeth before the fall.
Right. Sometimes your ego could get you in so much trouble. So you have to understand, like, this is a situation where sometimes you have to humble yourself and you have to step back and listen and let another person take the lead in a situation and just be cool with it. And it's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, there's strength in vulnerability. There's strength, vulnerability, and I think that's where we're going to go next week.
Hmm.
Is vulnerability is strong. Vulnerability is emotionally intelligent. Vulnerability is sexy. And that's something that you can't just dump out. Like, there's a difference between allowing someone to be vulnerable at the right time or just showing up on the second date dumping out a box of crazy. Like, this is who I am, this is where I came from, this is what my life was like.
Hmm.
Um, so you still want to get with me? Instead of over time being like, I've my life has not been easy. I've experienced some challenges. I don't know where to go from here. But instead, like, then you go all the way in. It's like, well, I'm not ever going to change because I don't want to change and you can't make me.
That's true.
But what do you do with that information?
Well, to me, in a situation like that, you have to step back and try to figure things out. Figure out what both of you want and what you're willing, how far you're willing to go to get what you want. And yes, it's a compromise. And a lot of people don't know how to compromise.
Most people don't know how to compromise.
And now we're in an era of so much selfishness. And if you're in a real relationship and it's all about me, 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 it can't be that way. It has to be about it's about us. Now, if you're in a situation where you're always giving of yourself and the other person is always taken, that's another problem. But when you compromise, when you talk things out, when you try to figure it out, it works better. I
Yeah.
believe that works a lot better when we sit there and we figure things out and we make it work. I think that's a good. I think that's good on that level.
I do too. I definitely do. I think that committing to committing to doing the work definitely starts with listening, but committing to do the work is the only thing that's ever going to fix something. Like, you
Right.
can't just, like the thing with the paper. You rip the paper in half, you say you're sorry, and it doesn't fix the paper. It's like if your sink is leaking, you're just going to look at it and say nice things to it and not fix it. What are you waiting for?
Right. You
You
got to
always
give.
have to go with people at their level, but
Uh huh.
it requires some action.
Right. You have to get that plumber, get him in there and plug up those holes and make that and fix that sink. That's it. Or you're gonna have a spill all over the house. So like people have to understand the way to someone else's heart, and that's sitting there and listening and really listening and paying attention and figuring out what this person wants and what they need. But also, we have to understand ourselves also. Sometimes you're so busy worried about everyone else that you overlook yourself, and that's not good either. And you have to communicate that. You have to communicate in what you need to make you happy. You have to communicate in what you would stand for to make yourself happy. You could be a person that's like, that's not for me. I'm not happy with that. And you have to stick to it. And you have to be true to what you are. And if a person doesn't understand that, then I don't know what to say. But in that conversation, you have to let a person know that you are important. What they feel is important, but you are also important. And you're not going to allow certain things to go down. So you have to let it be known and understood what you're willing to deal with and what you're not willing to deal with. You have to let it be known and understood that you feel the way you feel, and you're going to deal with things accordingly. And that's it. And people sometimes don't get that. And like I said, communication is just not speaking. Communication is listening. Communication is following through. You could talk all day, but if you don't put in the work afterwards, it don't matter what you said because you didn't make any moves for progress. So when we have a conversation and a person tells me I need A, B, and C, and all I'm willing to do is just listen and not do A, B, and C, what are we accomplishing?
Well, the biggest part of listening is not what you're saying. It's about processing what the other person is saying.
Right. That's
And
very important.
yeah, it's like, so what gives? Like, what day is it where you don't have to do that anymore? Is there any time when, like, you and the other person have like this peak communication and you don't need to listen?
I don't think there's any time that you don't need to listen. I think you always have. We could be together 60 years, but we still have to listen to each other. We may be connected. I may be able to read you. You may be able to read me, but we still have to communicate, and we still have needs, and we still have to get certain things across. So in order for things to go right, we have to communicate, we have to listen, and we have to follow through. To me, the biggest thing is following through. Like I said, if I'm telling you, I don't appreciate that you did this, I don't appreciate that this is going on, I don't appreciate that whole situation went down, and you just yes me to death, or you like, well, that's your problem. Like that's a problem now because the communication was lost somewhere, or you're just telling me you don't give a damn about how I feel. So, or I'm telling you I don't care how you feel. And if you're in a situation like that, you're not taking what I'm saying and taking it seriously, and that's not a good thing.
There's also the other kind of listening that people do or don't do. And that's when someone doesn't want an action. They don't want you to fix it. They just want you to listen to them talk. They
Yes,
want to
that's
get,
deep also.
yeah, they want to get it out of their system.
They want to vent.
They want to vent, and they don't really need you to give them any opinion. They don't need any action. They just want to share whatever it is with you in an effort to like lessen their own emotional load.
Hmm.
And when you love somebody, you got to do that a lot.
Yes, yes, that is true. That is true. Sometimes it's just about giving them that ear, giving that silence, and let them get it off their chest. And you just sit back and, okay, yes, I understand. I get what you're going through, and that's it. Like you're not always the fixer. You don't always have to be the fixer. Sometimes sometimes you have to step in and you have to tell a person what you need to get off your chest or whatever. But sometimes it's just what it is, and you just have to listen and just be that just be that ear for them to vent to for a little while and see where it goes from there.
Like one of the things in my own life, I don't ever need anybody to like fix things for me or rescue me or anything like that. I'm like comic book strong. I'm like the wily coyote of middle-aged women.
Ah,
You know, like the anvil's just gonna fall off, it's gonna hit me in the head, and we're gonna like shake it off and keep it moving.
mm-hmm.
But I do need the people in my circle to listen to me cry it out. I don't need you to send me money. I don't need you to come over. I don't need you to take me out to lunch or dinner or buy me drinks or anything like that. But I do need you to listen to me when I cry. And then forget it. You don't
Right.
have to process it. You just kind of have to like give me the space. Occasionally, I know, honey, I know. Or what's that making you think about? You don't even have to be genuine. Just do a little bit of active listening. Let me get it off my chest, blow my nose, fix my face, and move on with my life.
And that's important.
It's really important. Mrs. Williams is one of those people that I do this with. Like, she's heard it all. And there were some moments before she met Kevin where she did that. Maybe not
Hmm.
to the extreme, but she was like, "Where is this gonna go?" Mm, nobody can tell you.
Oh yes, we have had some conversations, so I definitely know what you're saying. And sometimes just that conversation could take so much weight off of you and free you and make you feel so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely freeing. It is absolutely. It's unburdening.
Right. But that's also where, like I said, people get caught up in their, oh, it's me against every, no, it's us against the world. And when we're speaking, let's be honest with one another. Let's be upfront with one another and really listen and respond to one another. And to me, like I said, that is so important. Like, don't just sit there and yes a person to death. Really pay attention. Really sit there and say what you want and how you see things, and move on from there. And you can make it work. You could definitely make that work.
I mean,
People,
there's definite value in the finer points of somebody knowing when you need just the ear or the action.
right.
And that's when somebody knows the difference instinctively, that's like a level of intimacy that you don't get with a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
I think when
That's true.
somebody knows what, when somebody knows when you're having a bad day at work, or it's time to encourage somebody to like redo your resume, maybe look for another job, or when it's time to like paint the apartment or start
Hmm.
looking for a house. Those are the things when somebody like understands not just what you say out loud, the context in which you're saying it.
Yes, that's important.
Because there's people in your life that they don't even have to speak to you out loud. You just look across the room and you see like the face and you know exactly where they're at.
And you know they understand you.
Yeah, they totally get you. And that's a level of intimacy.
Yes.
And
And that's a person you know they have your back.
yeah. Oh yeah. Like they're not gonna be all like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. They know exactly what you're thinking. And you
And you
know
know when a person has your back, that is a feeling that's uncomparable to much. It's like it's you love to know that someone will hold you down and they have your back and they're there for you and they're listening to you. And they're not only listening, they're understanding where you're coming from.
they get you.
Right. They get you. They know you're not out to hurt them. You only telling them things because they care. You're not being petty. You're not being judgmental. You're telling them what you feel because you truly care about them. And that's important. And it's important when a person really tries to receive what you're saying.
Right.
Because you could talk just to be talking. And if a person's not receiving it, what was the reason for you to even speak?
It wasn't.
Like it was just a waste of your time now.
Yeah.
And like I tell everybody, time is a precious commodity. Time is something you can't get back. So once I give you my time and my energy, that says a lot about how I feel about you.
And I'm sorry whether you are like the clerk in Walmart or the CEO of Citicorp. Your time has value.
That's right.
Your time, when you give it to someone, is a gift that is immeasurable. And when you offer to give it to somebody and they take that for granted, that's a problem.
Yes. A big
Because
problem.
they don't they aren't receiving it as the gift that it is. It's like there's one in listening to somebody, there's one thing to understand that like they need time to chill. It's another thing that like, all right, I respected your time to chill, but I don't need time to chill all the time.
Hmm.
I don't need my entire weekend to be spent riding the couch.
Definitely.
And that's just an example of one of many things. But are you listening for what they're saying? And are you listening to the context that they're saying it in? And are you listening with the right intention?
Right. That's another important thing to understand.
And these are the things that are going to make your relationship like healthy and better and sexy. And it's like, am I walking through the door with a chip on my shoulder? Is that got anything to do with you?
Right.
No, it
It's
doesn't.
it's
Don't
like
perceive it like it's personal.
right. It's like, are you listening to pacify me, or are you listening because you truly care and you want to fix the situation? Those are two different things. If you're listening just because you want to pacify me and you're basically brushing off what I'm saying, we're not solving nothing. But if you're listening with the intent of saying, I want this situation taken care of because I love this person and I'm with this person, that's a completely different agenda. So if you're listening saying, all right, I didn't see it from that perspective before, but now let me look at it from the way they're saying it, that says a lot. That says a lot. And a lot of people listen just to get things over with. They don't listen to get things fixed. And you have to listen to get things fixed. And I'm not saying that you're going to agree right away. You may never agree, but you still will get that person's perspective and a different point of view. And then you guys got to take it from there and try to understand what's going on.
Like, are you forgiving the person? Are you listening so that you can come to a place of agreement or forgiveness? Or are you just listening because they're not done talking yet?
Mhm.
And even that can be enough. Like, I'm just going to listen to them until they're done talking because
Yes.
there is no, we've all been either above or below the window of rationality.
Hmm.
And there comes a day when, you know, your spouse, your kids, your sibling, your parent, you just gotta listen until they shut up
Yes. And let it sink in.
or not.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Sometimes, did you ever like wake up and ask your kid if they were still bothered by the problem that was killing them the day before?
Not at all.
No? Maybe that's like a mom thing.
More than likely.
Yeah. Because like on Tuesday, this problem was the end of Western civilization. And the next morning, is that okay?
Hmm.
Oh, mom, are you still on that?
Right, because they're already over it.
Yeah, and you're like worried for their mental health and physical safety.
Yes, they're already over it. But look at us. It's the end of our time this week.
Yes.
And as always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
I would like to thank everybody that tuned in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to our beautiful audience. We
Yes, and,
appreciate you and love you.
yes. And we'll be back next Tuesday.
And I believe that next Tuesday we will talk about vulnerability.
Vulnerability, that's going to be an interesting one. No one likes to be vulnerable, but we'll see. All right.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too. All
All
right.
right.
Next week.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.